Welcome to week 2, day 3 of my Hypertrophy 1.0 program. You guys can download it in the description below, no strings attached. It's completely free. And I would love if you guys wanted to run it alongside me. This series is kind of just for the purpose of me learning and trying to build the best program possible for myself and hopefully for others. Today we're starting off with the Smith machine back squat. I really like this movement because it forces you into a great strength curve and helps you just get into the bottom of the hole, into your deepest squat without many errors. I'm rocking a squatting or a training shoe, which just has a flat sole. So you're not going to be all wobbly and whatnot. So you're going to feel more rigid and kind of be able to stand your ground a little better. You don't have to be wearing a certain training shoe. You could be wearing Converse. You could be barefoot. You could even have running shoes if you really wanted to, but keep in mind that the stability component will not be as strong in a running shoe. Anyways, I'm also using a belt to kind of remove my core from being the limiting factor. And I really, in the Smith machine, I don't think you're using your core nearly as much as something like a free weight squat. However, you're still using it a bit. And that's why I like to rock a belt. I want to show you guys one quick warm-up tip, one quick warm-up drill that I use before squatting. This warm-up drill is just meant to loosen up your hips and help your squatting form. So what you're going to do is grab a plate. The weight and the size doesn't matter much. You're going to squat down in your squat stance. And by using your elbows, you're going to be moving your legs back and forth and just loosening up those hips and your ankles and stuff like that with a weight to keep yourself from tipping over. And then you can kind of do some air squats if you'd like too. That's really just trying to get into that groove and warm up your lower body musculature. I've added 10 pounds to this lift. We're going to try and hit 10 repetitions or more in this first set, because that's what I did last time. Two more. Oh. I don't know if I could have got another rep, so I count that as definitely successful first set of this program. I honestly used to be against the Smith machine. I was kind of elitist in my thinking back in the day where I thought, oh, to get strong and bigger legs, you have to be doing the barbell variation of squatting. You have to be doing the conventional deadlift. No stiff-legged, no RDL. Definitely changed my tune after experimenting with other forms of training. And that's like something that I think that everybody should be doing. You should definitely like try everything before you make up your mind. I especially do love the Smith machine because I think that you can really get it to focus on your quads more without having to do a front squat. And this is because of the nature of how your back is. Your back is going to be really upright, which forces your quads to have to do most of the work, versus if your back is more pushed over to more like a 45 degree, then you're having to use your hips to bring yourself back up, which will engage more hamstring and glute. So for the purposes of this particular day, in this program, I think that the Smith machine is the way to go because we're going to hit our quads to a huge degree. Then after that, we're going to be doing some RDLs, some Romanian deadlifts to get our hamstrings to the maximum degree too. So we're already getting that direct hamstring work. So why not make the squat more of a direct quadricep worker? Last week I got 8 repetitions on my second set, so we're gonna beat that. At least get 8. Yeah, 9, so I'm happy about that. I'm sure that I'm not alone in this, but the second and third and fourth sets of an exercise is always so much easier. It always feels better. And I never really understood why, because I'm adequately warmed up on the first set. I mean, I did the warm-ups that I showed you guys, plus I did 4 or 5 just warm-up sets where I did the same exact form, lots of reps, and just worked my way into it. However, the second working set always feels so much better than the first. And I kind of have a hunch and a hypothesis, if you will. And what I think is that it's all in your mind. I think that the first set is always just going to be the hardest because you're working weight and you're not used to it for that day. So if you kind of get in your head about it and then it feels heavier than it probably should. So then when the second set rolls around, you're like, oh, I already did this and I know that I can do it for today. So now it just inherently, like almost subconsciously, feels easier than it did originally. Anyway, food for thought. Last week on the third set, I got 7 repetitions. So we're going to try and beat that. Actually, we are going to beat it. We're not going to try, we're going to do it. See, 2 more. We're doing the dumbbell Romanian deadlifts next to trigger the hamstrings and get a lot of hamstring development, because the Smith machine is really only targeting the quads and the glutes. We're not getting much hamstring, if any at all. So this one, we're really going to be targeting the hamstring. What I like about this movement is it's causing some hamstring contraction in the lengthened position instead of the shortened one. So by engaging hip flexion, by moving the hips back, it's stretching the living hell out of the hamstrings and causing it to lengthen to a maximum degree. Which, if we look at other hamstring movements, most of them just train the hamstrings in the shortened position by bringing up the knee like this. So this is a nice combination with something that we're going to do later, which is the lying hamstring curl. That one will train it shortened. This one is going to train it lengthened. So we get the best of both worlds. For me, wearing straps and belting up on this exercise is an absolute must, because while you're doing the exercise, you don't want your grip strength to give out before your hamstrings and glutes can reach their full potential, which is likely going to happen because for most of us humans, our hamstrings and glutes are way, way, way stronger than our grip. I mean, they're some of the biggest muscles in the human body. Alongside this, I love to wear a belt because of the same reasons. You don't want your spine to be put under too big of a load. You don't want your spine to give out, your back to give out while you're performing this lift. That can only increase your injury risk. And I believe I saw something somewhere where you're actually getting the same amount of core stimulus wearing a belt versus not wearing a belt. So like, why wouldn't you wear one if you have the option to? You're still going to get the same amount of benefit from wearing a belt versus not. So why put your low back under and your spine under that kind of risk if you can help it?
So I have that luxury, but it's like difficult. Yeah. How's your wife?
So far, in each of these sets, I've gone up 10 pounds and I've gone up 1 rep, so I'll take it. Next, we're gonna do some walking lunges. I love just adding in something that hits the whole lower body after we do our 2 main heavy hitters, the squats and the deadlift variation, just for like some extra volume without absolutely killing ourselves. And the way I kind of rank it is like the first 2 exercises were definitely like the most taxing and the most draining exercises, but also rewards us with the most stimulus for growth. And then after that, we had this one, which is kind of like middle tier, where it's still difficult, but it's not going to absolutely destroy us, and it's going to provide a great stimulus. And then lastly, we have our isolation work, like our quad extensions and our hamstring curls, which is just kind of like, and I say it all the time, like icing on the cake, icing on the volume on top of the main volume. So let's get this exercise done. I'm going up 5 pounds on each arm. For our next exercise, it's supposed to be the seated hamstring curl, and then the quad extensions, and then this exercise, which is the standing unilateral dumbbell calf raise. But since I'm already here and I already have the dumbbell that I want, and I already have a platform to do the calf raise on, I'm just going to get into this one. Because it's rearranging the order in this way isn't necessarily a bad thing when all you have left are smaller exercises, isolation lifts, if you will. The only way that I wouldn't do it is if you were opting to like start with this and then go into like squats or something. Why would you needlessly tax your body when you need to save up as much stamina and strength as you can for those heavy compound lifts? I don't get that. The only way that you probably would, the only reasoning in my mind to do that would be is if your calves were really lagging behind the rest of your lower body and you wanted to pay them special attention, because whatever exercise you're hitting first, you're going to be hitting it with the most intensity and vigor and strength and all that jazz. So let's get into it. Last time I did 10 repetitions on each leg, so let's try. I keep saying try. Let's hit it. We got to adjust our thinking, our mindset. Okay, that was good. 10 is definitely the number that we're gonna be hitting, which is great because this is progressive overload. Since I've added 10 pounds to the dumbbell, that's just 10 extra pounds per rep. Those are some good sets for calves. Just use the word progressive overload. And that's basically what you're striving for in every single training session. Progressive overload is just progressing one training variable over time. It could be any training variable you choose. You could progressively increase volume, you could increase intensity, you could improve your form, you could reduce your rest periods, you could, all these different things. You could add in a new exercise, a new stimulus. So there's so many different ways you can increase progressive overload. Of course, most people, they resort to increasing load because it's the easiest to track. And it seems to produce, a little bit more growth than the other variables. So pretty much in every session, we're striving to progressively overload our bodies in some way, because if we don't, then our body is just going to return to homeostasis. If you do the same workout every time, then there's no reason for your body to change. So why would it? Even though I do a couple of partials at the end, I'm not actually counting those to the final weight in reps that I record. They're just a way for me to make sure that I'm getting to or near failure. Ooh, that's tough. I ended up swapping my starting leg. I think that that's a good way to just to keep things even. Ugh. These are deceptively hard, and if you've never tried them, I encourage you to do so. Finishing off calves with the same exercise that we did last week, the soleus raise. And this time we're actually going up to 4 sets because in combination with the standing unilateral dumbbell calf raise, we want around 8 sets for the session, and then eight sets next session, which will be on Saturday, for a total weekly volume for the calves of 16 sets. And therefore we're doing 4 sets on this, 4 sets on the other one. That's 8. Plus this Saturday, that's another 8 for a total of 16. Because volume is the primary driver of hypertrophy. That is the single most well-known variable for inducing growth. On the topic of volume, I think that a lot of people either are underestimating or overestimating the amount of volume that they're doing. I feel like most people aren't even tracking how much volume they're doing per muscle group per week. And I think that that's one of the number one proxies in determining whether you're going to be getting as much of a growth stimulus out of your training as you want. So I encourage you all to track your volume. If you're not using my program, which is already tracked, then look at your own and look at it with a really introspective eye and examine it. Actually sit down and count how many sets you're doing. Are you going hard enough? And then compile them. And you want around, at least 10 to upwards of 20, at least 10. If you're a beginner, 10 is probably fine. But in all honesty, you probably want around like 14 or 15 at least. I think that that's where you're really going to get the most value. And then like in my program, we're increasing volume over time. It's already built into the program. You're increasing sets. So by the 4th week, we're up to 20 sets per muscle group per week, which, to some people that might not sound like a lot, but that's a lot. That's a ton. And it's hard to recover from that. Actually, I'm just going to stay here and crank out another set. I don't need as much rest on calves because they're not a very taxing exercise. It doesn't actually impact my cardiovascular system at all. I'm trying not to bounce at all, but when you're on the last set of 8 calf raise sets, it's easy to start bouncing. I'm just trying my hardest not to. Yeah, we're finishing off quads with some leg extensions. I really like this one because it is not isometric. I don't know if I would say that. It's an isolation exercise for the quads, and it's hitting one of the heads. I think it's the rectus femoris, but it doesn't get hit very hard on squats. We're gonna do 3 sets of these bad boys. Unfortunately, there's no better camera angle for the leg extension machine. It's in kind of a weird spot in my gym. Fortunately, there's no good camera angles for this exercise either, the seated hamstring curl. So we're just gonna have to improvise. You guys aren't gonna really get the clearest shot. However, I do really like this exercise because it's getting your hamstrings in a shortened position, but you're also stretching it as well to the nature of having your torso bent over. I think I'm only going to record one of these due to the camera angle, but I'm going to do 2 more sets off camera. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this day. Week 2, day 3 legs. Anyway, have a good one.